Alright, okay, hello, friends, seekers, wizards, magicians. I want to thank you all for being here and tuning in for another deep dive today into what I feel is a pretty powerful alchemical formula for self-transformation and accessing higher consciousness. Because in order to really see change in our lives, and in order to really grow and to experience the higher levels of this life, we have to really want to do so. And if you think about your own individual consciousness as a sort of a glowing orb, of illumination and light. There exists a hierarchy, or degrees and scales of power, in which that individual light will have its existence. So there's ways to cultivate this light and to guide it upwards along the ladder of lights, which is your spine. And the goal here is to guide this orb upwards until it reaches the crown, and the individual will then reach full-scale illumination and reach the pinnacle of their own consciousness. So the topic of today's dive is desire. Because as I said, you have to really want this illumination. It is a real thing. And, the experience of majesty, and expansion that comes along with the regaining of the faculties of the awakened crown is something that, words just simply don't do justice there. But once you get a taste for the higher heights, of this consciousness and this experience, it becomes a sort of endless love affair between you and the spirit of life, and, it just keeps growing and growing. But desire, it sort of has a negative connotation in the spiritual community, in the spiritual world, because, most of us have spent time and learned a lot of valuable wisdom from the Buddhist tradition, but I was always struck by, the core tenet, one of the core tenets of Buddhism being that desire, is the root of all suffering. And to be honest, there's certainly a lot of truth to this maxim, and, the reality is that, inside of us, that there is a complete, whole, perfect universe. And, through self-discipline and meditation, Buddhist masters, they learn to access this inner realm, and experience complete peace and transcendence. And this is known as nirvana. And, for some, walking that path is very appealing. And you may find that, pulling away from any worldly desire and doing a lot of meditation is going to benefit you greatly. And, again, there's no doubting that the incessant pull of our minds towards, external sources of pleasure and fulfillment always leaves something to be desired. We spend so much time trying to, fill an emptiness, and we're constantly distracting ourselves from things that, we don't want to face, things we don't want to feel, and, we don't want to think about, because that's what desire is. It's a pull towards something external, something outside. And that pull, it really is sort of the thing that keeps the gears, of this whole world turning. We're made to feel like we're not good enough by ourselves. And this artificial sense of need and belonging, it has been created by the capitalist interest in order to continue profiting off of our own insecurity and instability. So no doubt, there is a dark side to the nature of desire. And the less and less you need, from this world, the more you can clearly see how, Buddhism is correct in asserting that, desire does lead to suffering because, again, we're good enough on our own, just by ourselves, just by the nature of our being. But, people are really suffering in this world. And, although suffering has its place and it serves a purpose in our growth, there's no such, and there's also such thing as needless suffering, and a lot of that does have to do with our desire for things that we don't truly need. Now, where I feel like Buddhism has gone wrong is in their effort to eradicate desire from the mind. Because this is a sort of nihilism and a self-denial that I think can be very dangerous. So, and again, this is why you have to be careful with any ancient tradition. Because we have to realize that these philosophies were designed exclusively by men a very long time ago. And a certain degree of, anti-femininity and, anti-naturalism certainly did creep in. Because desire is a natural emotion, And if you get to the core essence of it and you trace it all the way to its root, the origin of desire is undoubtedly sexual in nature. The desire to mate, to procreate, to have sex, to create children. It's easily the most powerful of all the natural urges that arise within us. So trying to rid yourself of something that is encoded in your DNA, that's basically like shutting down, your two most primordial energy centers, the root chakra and the sacral chakra. Now, because this energy is so powerful, there are few people who can resist giving into it. Pretty much everyone has desire. Everyone wants to have sex. Everyone pretty much does. It's just a natural part of life. And I think it's foolish not to accept that. But because everyone has, eaten the apple, so to speak, and you're engaged with these energies without much consideration for the spiritual dimension of that engagement, their consciousness remains mostly tethered to or stuck in the lower chakras. And these lower chakras are gateways to the lower planes of existence. And I'm not saying that to demonize them, but just to say that there are higher planes of existence. That we have energy centers and chakras that are gateways to these higher planes. But that these doors remain closed for the bulk majority of us because, we're so infatuated with the more base levels of consciousness. So much of humanity still live in a state of spiritual ignorance. Hence the need to find a creative solution. A way of working with this powerful desire in a way that allows us to still be sexual beings, but also spiritual beings. because desire, it's a fire, it's a passion that burns within us. And any flame that burns out of control, is bound to do some damage. So it's important to first, to get a grip, and to gain self-discipline.